Good morning. And welcome to the Development and Finance Committee of the Housing Opportunities Commission and its February 24 meeting. I am Jackie Simon, Chair of the Development Finance Committee, and to my right is Jeffrey Markowitz, fellow commissioner, and Mr. Nelson is our other committee member, and he is joining us by internet this morning. The first item on the agenda is the approval of our Development Finance Committee minutes of January 27th. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We're unanimous. Our next item is the approval of the Development and Finance Committee's closed session minutes of January 27th. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Well, we dispatched those quite quickly this morning. We only have a single item this morning on our agenda, which is related to the residences on the lane and an approval request by the staff to extend the maturity date of the HOC bridge loan to up to 2 residences on the lane. And before I turn it over to staff, I will just comment. I noticed several places we're using an acronym to refer to this community, and I would plead with us not to do that in our minutes, not to do that when the public is not going to know what RO means. I think it's important that we recognize these communities and neighborhoods officially by their name, so that people understand and can make the link to the community, particularly when we've had other names for them during the construction period. So I think if we can maybe agree to do that in the future, that would be helpful to certainly the public, and I'll admit it would be helpful to me as well. So I'll turn the meeting over initially to our Executive Director, Ms. Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members, members of the public, and HOC staff. This matter is one in which we are seeking your support to move forward with a reinstatement to allow for additional time for the bridge loan that's currently in place for the Upton. I will turn it over to our Director of Development, Marcus Irvin, and our Housing Acquisition Manager, Jay Shepard, who can provide more details related to this request.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Marcus Irvin, Director of Development, and we'll make a note of the full name and the final version. I'm going to turn it over to Jay Shepard to provide a summary of the request.
Thank you, Marcus, and good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jay Shepard. For the record, I'm the Housing Acquisition Manager. I've been involved in this project since it's back very early on. Went through through the construction process, and now we're excited that it's leased up and we're moving forward. Today, we are asking for the approval from you to extend the maturity date essentially on the bridge note for the residences on the lane, which was formerly known as HOC at this is a HOC's portion of it. It's a 400 overall unit master development that's in downtown Rockville. HOC owns 150 of those units, and they are age restricted to age 62 and better. If you recall, the initial construction financing for this deal involved a bifurcated closing, where we closed on the construction financing in March of 2019, and then on the LIHTC in November of 2019. And at the time that we had closed the LIHTC equity, we had anticipated a term to this bridge note to be approximately 42 months. That took us out through a period of August of 2022. And that was done in March of 19. And so due to essentially the relatively slow construction process, we did finish it in December of last year, and we had anticipated that we could reach stabilization whereby we could take out we would achieve the LIHTC equity proceeds in order to pay this note back. That had been delayed just due to the overall process. And so by the time now we're in a situation where we have to achieve rental stabilization, which we've done as of November of 2022, we are anticipating that those LIHTC equity proceeds can come into the project, but after when the maturity date on this note was due. So what we're asking for today is to extend that maturity date, and the terms of the extension actually take it out through the earlier of the date of the LIHTC equity investor has contributed their equity installments, or to the acceleration of the bridge note pursuant to these terms. So it's not a specific date. It actually takes it out through the time to allow us the chance to get those LIHTC equity proceeds into the deal to pay this back.
Would you be kind enough to define LIHTC for those who are not familiar with some of these terms?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the low income housing tax credit. They are a limited partner in the ownership of the structure, and they provide equity in the form of tax credits that they sell. And so those tax credits are equity that we need to the transaction to allow us to pay off debt like this.
Have any questions?
So just a couple of clarifying questions. So one almost says that the original maturity date was August 28th of 2022.
Correct.
So we're well past that.
Yes, we are.
Okay. So what's been going on in the meantime?
Since August 28th?
Yeah. I mean, if the loan has matured, but now we're extending it, why didn't we extend it earlier?
No, that typically we would ask for the extension prior to when it would actually mature. But in this case, that just didn't happen. We identified that we needed this basically a little bit late, and so. But now we know we have to extend it. That's. I mean, essentially, we knew that there needed to be an extension. It's just the team didn't get around to doing it until now.
Okay. Does that present any issues? I mean,
And our legal counsel can weigh in on this as needed, but of course, because this is our loan to ourselves, it would be HOC that would call the loan or raise an issue if there was non-compliance or if it had extended. The reason why we're moving forward, first of all, of course, we have to more closely watch our own loans and our terms, so that's an acknowledgement there. And in order to move forward, a part of the closing requires us having the documentation that this particular bridge loan was extended. So the action and needing the resolution to support that is why we're, of course, needing to move forward in this manner. So definitely there was a lapse of time in which this should have come before the board. The good news is, because it is our loan, there were no negative consequences for the lack of doing so.
okay. And then I was also a little confused. Are we the note also says that due to delays in construction and lease up, residents on the land is not expected to meet all the terms of the LIHTC penultimate installment until second quarter of 2023. But the original terms were regarding the full payment. And so are we waiting for the penultimate installment or for all installments?
So we are waiting for the stabilization installment. That essentially is the biggest chunk of the LIHTC equity. And that installment is needed to pay down this note. That comes after the completion installment. And so the completion installment and the stabilization is basically achieved once the cost certification is done on the project, and then the property has reached 3 months at 95% occupancy and a 1.15 debt service coverage ratio, and those have to be consecutive months.
Okay. So which is the penultimate and which is the ultimate?
The penultimate installment would be the stabilization.
Stabilization. So are we asking for this to be, and the ultimate is the construction, or sorry, not the construction, the what was
Completion?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you, well, so essentially, I think this is saying that the stabilization payment is the one that we're waiting to, and we're anticipating that in that May timeframe of this year.
Okay. I'm just trying to clarify the difference between, you know, we're referencing penultimate and then we're referencing, you know, the contributed all LIHTC equity installments.
Well, there's still an additional LIHTC equity installment for the 8609, which is achieved from our partners at CDA, and that does come later. That's not the bulk of the equity, however. So we have 3 more installments coming from the LIHTC investor. They each have different milestones that are required in order to achieve. The bulk, they're not all equal installments. The completion installment essentially is to pay for certain reserves at the property. But the stabilization one, which is the penultimate, is the largest of the LIHTC of the long-term housing tax credit investment at that point. Then you still have a final installment that's required once CDA blesses basically the transaction, and they do so with a certificate called the 8609.
Okay. So I mean, I don't have a problem with extending it to, you know, when all equity installments are received. I mean, since we're just paying ourselves back. But I'm just trying to understand, are we planning on paying ourselves back when the after all or before all? At the stabilization payment or after all of
the stabilization payment isn't enough to pay the entire note back. Although it's actually very close. I believe it's extremely close. So there should be enough proceeds based on what we've looked at most recently. Is that yes, that's okay. When it'll be paid.
You may just want to make it more consistent in the clear and
Yes,
so, Commissioner Markowitz, good morning. For the record, this is Kay Rain Brown, Deputy Executive Director. What we can do to clarify this memo before it's put before the Commission is to outline the dates or the milestones at which point the payments will be received and how the funds will be allocated, such that if we need to make adjustments in the resolution to show a further extension, then we can do that. So we can outline for you all the milestones and how the investor payments will be received. So it's a little bit more clear as to how all of the equity payments will come in and how they will be spent. And I think the extension of the loan is tied to the point where HOC calls the loan. There's a date. There's not a specific date that's outlined. It's, you know, when it's paid off or when the loan, you know, when the loan is called by HOC. So we'll be a little bit more clear in the resolution when it's put before the Commission to answer the questions that you're raising.
that'd be great.
A question I have, is there a penalty because we didn't get stabilization within the 42-month period?
No, there's not. The question was, is there a penalty under the bridge note terms because the LIHTC equity proceeds weren't received in the first term, that it had been extended, that had terminated at August 28th, 2022. And the answer.
Actually, my question is, and this is showing my lack of full understanding of LIHTC procedures. I thought that there was a requirement with LIHTC that you needed to have stabilization within 42 months.
Oh, no, that's not. Under the LIHTC terms, we had anticipated the proceeds earlier. Yes, that's true. And so they will look at the overall operation of the building, how well it's performing, how much NOI is being received, and the timing of that for the equity in credits that we will get. And they will look at either an upward or downward adjustment based on that. However, the property is performing very well, and it's not based on time, it's based on when the amount of money for this particular transaction was received. So we started leasing in this building in January of 2022. And so, but we reached stabilization of the property in November of 2022. So the first month of stabilized occupancy is going to be December. We need 3 months in a row, so December, January, and February. And by the time the reports are produced for the February month, it'll be mid-March. And at that point, we'll be able to determine if we can have an upward or downward adjustment on the credits based on the performance of the building. But from our early discussions with the LIHTC investor, who's Wells Fargo, this property is performing extremely well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? It seems to me that we were very successful in a quick lease up in this building. I was amazed that we reached 95% when we did. Now, I appreciate the staff's efforts to make that happen. So thank you very much. Is there a motion to accept the staff recommendation to extend the maturity date of HOC's bridge?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions? Hearing none. I call for the question. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. We are unanimous. Thank you for getting this to us.
Thank you.
Getting the i's dotted and the t's crossed. And I believe that's the only item on the agenda. I would like to make one comment. I thought that the staff representation and presentation at the Affordable Housing Conference yesterday was very well done and very well representing the agency and its efforts and focus on just putting shoulder to the wheel and doing everything possible to get the job done. I think people understood that that was the pace that's been set. It's refreshing, exciting to have the chance to offer have that presentation. So, and it was very good to see a lot of friendly faces and supportive acknowledgement and recognition that the agency's efforts are producing, and that we're doing it in the way that it is a national model and the way it should be done, inclusively and economically, creatively, just are setting the bar, and I think we're setting it high, and I think every development and community we're creating, we're doing a better job than we did on the one before, which wasn't shabby. So I really appreciate the effort and the creativity and the forward thinking, because we're building these homes and communities for many generations of families, and we're holding them and we're thinking forward on how people are going to be living 40 years from now. And just yesterday, we learned that those over 90 in this country are the fastest growing population, segment of our population. Now, when we think of the implications of that, when within 50 years, there's the potential for living to 150. We've got to be thinking ahead and preparing our built environment to allow people to live and without having to go back to the drawing board and rehab and change everything. And I learned at Holy Hall, for instance, that our room for bicycles and scooters and so forth is anticipating the lithium batteries, which create fire. And the room, the storage room for that equipment is concrete, which is the way it needs to be. Now, I would bet you there isn't another authority in the country that has thought about the implications of the safety of a new relatively new transportation. And I just have great admiration for the staff's efforts, and thank you very much. Any other observations or comments?
Well said.
Thank you. Congratulations. I declare our February 24 meeting of the Development and Finance Committee adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, commissioners.